I've lost half my hair.
Tell us your thought about like opening an offline space.
80% of our eggs is in this one big basket. And of course, the learnings have been massive. Our co-founder, Pankaj, was launching something called Deals, which later was coined as Zomato Gold. I was the first person on the Gold team in India.
Ragini, from your journey, what has been like your highlight moments?
Enra Noe. We wrote a long email to all of our members telling them that, guys, like, we're really sorry, but it didn't work.
What do you think went wrong? Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Alina Dissects. Today I have with me Ragini Das, who's the founder of Leap Club, a women's professional network club I have been a part of since many years, and I have to get her to tell you why it's so cool and why women need a safe space to interact with each other and grow. Hi Ragini, thank you so much for being here.
Of course, and long time in the making.
Yeah,
I'm
right.
super excited to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for doing this. The first question that I have to you is that when you started Leap Club, do you think the onus was on you to do something out there for women to connect with each other?
So I don't think it was so much onus on me as it was onus within me. I think we genuinely believe that women need communities, women need safe spaces to just thrive, grow, like just support each other, right? And how do you kind of create that? Was this something we could give the next 5 to 10 years of our life to? And I think the answer was a clear yes. And how do you combine that mission, that vision with something that's also tangible, with something that will also sustain in the longer run? And that was the entire thought process and the thesis, right? Like it's not so much of a burden because when you say onus on, it becomes a little bit like a burden. But I think it's a responsibility. And it's a responsibility that we're very proud and honestly we're very privileged to even carry and like take forward.
And do you think that was missing in the market? Do you think that there were no spaces for women to connect with each other?
Unfortunately, what happens, Alina, is when you're working on a mission like ours, which is more women in leadership positions, unfortunately, it gets looked at as a not-for-profit organization, right? Like one that doesn't make revenue. And I feel like that was missing. There were many women-only communities, but unfortunately, a lot of them didn't sustain in the longer run because they didn't have that revenue fuel, right? Because what is mission? Mission is just your why. And the revenue is actually the how to let your mission even go on in the longer run or sustain in the longer run. And we felt like that was missing. Women didn't have professional networks that took them from A to B. And how do I connect with other women and have a safe space, which is what our club does today. But it's been 4.5 years of really working super hard, but also evolving with understanding what women actually want.
Right. And do you look at it from a business perspective or do you look at it from a mission perspective?
So I think both, right? I remember, I think Anand Chandrasekharan, who's the partner at General Catalyst, had told us this, I think 1-2 years into making. And he'd said that, I think great businesses have doing good baked into them. And when that business compounds, the good also compounds. So we didn't start off with, we only want to build a mission-oriented business, but we also didn't start off with only profitable, only business, only money, right? It has to go hand in hand because passion will be that spark. It doesn't pay bills in the long run, right? And how do you build a company that can prove to the world that you can do both and you should do both? And that's what we started out with.
Has there ever been a time where you'd had to choose between, okay, this is something that we should do, but maybe it's not financially scalable for us?
Every single day. So you need to understand when you're building for a TG like ours, everyone has an opinion on how we should run Leap.club.
Of
You have it,
course.
I have it, 10 people on the road will have it. So we get feedback because we also build in public, right? I think we get that feedback and we get those perspectives, for the lack of a better word, real time, every day from lots and lots of people. But I think as a founder, it becomes your responsibility to really detach from what like three people are telling you, right? If three people come and tell me, we spoke about the fitness events, three people come and tell me that fitness events are great and you should really do them, right? I cannot get completely blindsided by that and like only go after it if my numbers say otherwise, right? And to give you a very Leap non-club example also, I think we launched something called Jobs, which was a big part of our thesis. We spent almost 11, 12 months building it. We got the best folks in tech and product from IIM Jobs, Naukri, you name it. We really spent all of our time, effort, just building that out. I think the feature was great. It was built beautifully. We had the Zomatos, the BCGs, like all the best companies. For some reason, month one, 50 people are using. Month two, 100 people are using. 200 people are using. That number just didn't go beyond 400 in a few months. And I can, as a founder, be like, yeah, 400 people are using, this is great, because people will also tell you, oh, I found this job, and a lot of people, like Bloom hired someone, another fellow founder who is a friend hired someone in their fintech platform. So when you hear those 2-3 people tell you it's doing well, it's very easy to get like very blindsided and be like, oh, this is great. But I have this theory of flipping the number. So when you flip the number, let's assume Leap has 25,000 women. And if I flip the number and data is telling me, yeah, 24,500 are not using it, then I have to look at that very, very differently. I have to look at it very, very practically, because how to not get very, very excited about this
What
2,
you
3
want to do
people and what
versus
we
what
want to
people-
do, and it's great for the mission. Because if it's not going to sustain in the long term and you're going to crash and burn or it's going to crumble, then honestly, why are you even working on what you're working on?
Right.
So I would say founders here will have the toughest job to not get enamored by what three people are saying and really zoom out. So I, in fact, deal with that every day, whether that's with our online business, whether that's with our offline business, but really data, let numbers.
But I
do
would
the
really
talking.
assume that something like that, as in a jobs platform, would really work. What do you think went wrong?
Multiple things.
Okay.
I think first and foremost, the timing of the market.
Okay.
You can have the best companies, but typically I'm talking about Jan last year, where a lot of people are not hiring. It was literally almost 2008 all over again. No companies were hiring. All our POCs who used to manage that from other companies have already gotten laid off, right? Like the entire HR team at like your top food tech platform, at a great consulting firm, they're all laid off. So all our emails are also bouncing back. We had 6 of our best people put on the job, and I'm sure there are multiple things we could have done better as well. But I do feel like it was the timing. And the second thing, I think our larger learning in Leap overall has been, you have to let members tell you what Leap really is, right? You can't push a feature or a product or even positioning on people, especially the kind of women we go after, women like you and I, right? Which is the toughest audience to please in this country. But if people are not looking at Leap as a jobs platform, then why are you forcing people to think that it's a jobs platform? If people are looking at it for events, if they're looking at Leap as a place to upskill and learn and connect with other women, then you have to really double down on that and not be like, today it's a jobs platform, today it's a so-and-so platform. And in fact, in hindsight, if jobs would have happened, and I don't think the club would have opened. I don't think we would have really gone back and been like, events is our aha. Because we also learned in that entire process that people love Leap because they get to meet other great, phenomenal women, right? And how do you make that aha a lot more tangible? And that's when Radius started. That's when even the research for the offline club and the safe space we've built for women started. So I feel like all the dots connect eventually.
Yeah.
I think in the process, it's really heartbreaking. And I remember, I think we wrote a long email to all of our members telling them that, guys, like, we're really sorry, but it didn't work. And this is all that we tried. And
But building publicly must be hard because you have to face that and you have to
Yeah.
face the criticism and you have to give answers to people.
Yeah.
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 It's like-
It's hard. Would I have it any other way? I wouldn't, right? Because I also feel like, and there is no right answer. There are founders who like to build publicly. There are ones who like to put their head down and work and not build publicly, which is also okay. So there's no right or wrong. But again, I think for who Anand and I are as founders, what Leap.Club stands for, I think we stand for being real. We stand for authenticity. We stand for showing the reality of, building a business and building a tough business like ours, which is not easy on 360 days, right, of the year. So how do you share your wins? How do you share your losses? How do you tell people this is all we did? So we're sorry it didn't work, or this worked really well, and this is what we're going to double down on. So I feel like for us it's worked because it's also made members believe in us a little bit more. It's made them more open to our thoughts, processes, and not like everyone understands it. And it's okay. The positives outweigh the criticism for us. So yeah, I think we wouldn't build any other way.
I think for me also, because my platform is so public, there's
Yeah.
always that like, why are you doing this? There's a lot of like thoughts and all. And I
Does bother you?
remember in the beginning it used to, because I didn't know how to handle it back then. And we did also go through what we call in marketing a marketing myopia, where you are not far-sighted, and especially in the beginning of the business, right? So I also launched a platform called Mentorship because I thought that that's what I could provide to my community, and I was connected to a lot of agency founders and CEOs and all, but publicly it didn't work out. So that in the beginning was more difficult to like handle, versus if it happened now, then I would have been more equipped to handle it. But it did make audiences more aware that, okay, this is a company that I can reach out to and I can give my feedback to, and I can do like these changes. And for you, I have, you write those blogs. I am one of the readers. I read all of that.
Someone's reading them.
I read it all the time, and I'm like, you're so open, and like you can do this so openly, talk about what you learned even throughout the year. So putting that out must be like quite courageous. Courageous to do.
No, it really, sometimes I'm just like, what will the team think, right? Because here I'm talking about culture and this and like keepers test, and I'm like, will people think? But like I have one theory which I've learned in the last 4 years, which is no one cares, right?
Right.
And
They move on.
People move on. People have moved on from even things they shouldn't have moved on from. Like, let's be honest, right? But as founders, you owe it, and especially to women, I think you owe it to them to really share your learning, share your journey, so that the others can learn.
And
the
they
others
also
grow a
feel
lot
like
more.
we're a part of it. We feel like we're
Yeah.
somebody that is important to the company.
Yeah.
That feeling needs to come in from our audiences. But tell us your thought about like opening an offline space and how it has been till now for you.
It's been challenging. I've lost half my hair. But to take you back on, I think, how this entire thought also came. Of course, like we spoke about how jobs didn't work, and like we started looking at like what is people's aha, and it was clear. It's face-to-face interactions. It's really when people meet other women in a space. And I think for us, we knew that, but we had never imagined making a real physical space, right? Because you also assume, yeah, of course it is too expensive.
Logistics, yeah.
Logistics is crazy to manage. Both me and my co-founder have been absolute tech babies. So before this, we were building Zomato. He was building an OTT platform. So we have except for my long-standing dream of opening a restaurant, I think we have no offline bone in us, barring of course events, because we used to host like 30 to 3,000 people events, right?
Yeah.
So we had that experience, but we had no experience of running a space, right? Like, and today to think of it, you have to think about black coffee is over, hair is there on the sofa, so you have to do every single little thing. And for us, I think our Women's Day campaign this year, what we did was we actually put a box. Both of us were in Gurgaon. Our entire team was based out of Gurgaon, by the way. We put a box in DLF Cyber Hub, which is kind of like your BKC of Gurgaon. And I think this was around end of Feb or 1st of March. And it was just a confession box. Okay. Just come, say whatever it is that you want. And people can't see you, but you're speaking on a mic so everyone can hear you. And the stuff people have said when you give them a space to speak, right? And I feel like that was our final straw of this has to happen, right? So we literally, Alina, went all in. We have gone all in, not just from a money and energy point of view, but we've moved cities, we've moved teams, and we're not a big team. We're literally a 13, 14 people team right now, right? So to really put all eggs, I would say 80% of our eggs is in this one big basket of like opening India's first women-only space. And of course, the learnings have been massive, right? Like, what are people using it for? Who is it for? What will work? Like, what kind of events work? What kind of conversations work? What kind of members see value? Who doesn't see value? I think all of that has been a very humbling journey. I think it's given us a lot to think about. It's also given us a slightly more tangible Leap.club, because essentially for 4 years we've been an online community, and it's a very, you have to show up, you have to make an effort, right? So of course there's an app, of course you can connect with people, you can, you know, sign up for events, you can do all of that for our online community, but this requires you to physically show up. But the beauty of it is really when we see people, like someone's a founder and you know, I think she's running maybe a skincare startup, someone's an MC, someone is coming from Matunga and she's like a, I think she works as a freelancer, right? Like she writes. And you see all three of them, they don't know each other. They sit on a table, they brainstorm, they get lunch together, they go back home. And that community and that safe space to be yourself, right? I think that has been the really, that's been our little aha, ourselves, if I may say so.
Yeah. So, how is online different for you as a business from the offline structure?
So online for us as a business is, it cuts across, again, like cities as well, right? Like if you're sitting in a Delhi, you can sign up. If you're sitting in a Jaipur, you can sign up. If you're sitting in Chennai, you can sign up, right? So it's an online community, but you can discover other people around you, right? Like through, of course, Radius and a bunch of other features. You can join micro communities, which connects you with, again, like-minded people. So women who want to work out of a co-working space, women who are interested in F&B, people who like to play football. So a lot of these micro communities and of course events for you to all, both online and offline. So that's largely our online community, which again becomes kind of a top of the funnel for us for our offline business. Offline for us is again a lot more tangible. You get all of that, plus you get a physical space to come and meet other women, to come and attend events at the club like 5-6 times a month, for you to again be a part of like smaller communities like women in marketing, women in, you know, startups. We have a book reading workshop that's coming up on Sunday. So there's a readers club. So it's kind of like the online community, but in a really physical form. So that's the difference between the two.
Right. And so here's something that I've got as feedback on Leap Club is that a lot of people say, okay, there's too much happening. There's this, there's that. How can I make the best use of Leap Club if I sign up?
Yeah. It's something that comes to me also, right? So I think it's a known problem. I think what people need to understand is Leap is what you make of it. And the only way Leap will work for you is if you, number one, show up consistently, right? You have to, Alina, invest in conversations. You have to invest in the connections. You have to be open to opportunities, but also be open to sharing opportunities, right? At the end of the day, and I remember, I think a lot of people also come to us and say, how did you get members so right? But we manually spent time speaking to our first 10,000 members and onboarding them, which was a lot of manual labor.
Yeah.
But it also really helped us ensure that we get the givers a lot more than the takers. A community is only strong if you have a mix, right? Like you can't just be like, I just want to take from the platform, but I'm not going to give something back. So it's literally about putting yourself in situations which will give you those opportunities, right? Have deeper conversations with people, share opportunities with people, engage actively with the community. It might feel like, who's going to go to Fort, right? Like I'm sitting in Bandra. It might feel like, why should I show up for this online workshop? Because, you know, how will attending a workshop on personal branding help me? But we need to understand if we don't do that, we're actually doing a disservice to ourselves if we signed up for a community like this, right? Because it is essentially made for you to grow, but only if you put in that effort to also come into that circle.
Right.
Yeah.
I've always wondered though, how does somebody tangibly see the results of networking? For example, if somebody came to Leap and they two people had an association and say did a deal or hired somebody,
Yeah.
how do you measure that for your success?
So honestly, we have a website. It's called love.leap.club. Unfortunately for us, the only thing we can track is our conversion. We can't track success, right? We hear it a lot. When we hear it, we take a screenshot or we put it on the website to really go back on the tougher days. But that's the thing with networking in general, whether Leap, whether outside, right? It is never I'm going to sign up today and tomorrow I'm going to get this out of the platform. Right. It could be something that happens to be 3 months later, right? There are people who have found co-founders. There are people who have found jobs. There are people who found podcast buddies, right? There are people who have honestly, Alina, walked out of bad marriages and gone to another Leap member's house because they had nowhere else to go, right? So when you see that, you really stop measuring, oh, this person got that, right? And I'm sure there is another pool of people who maybe haven't really seen that value, but you will again only see value if you invest in that continuously, right? Like I said, I have like a DOE formula, right? About like networking in general. D is deep, absolutely deep conversations.
Okay.
If you meet someone, you can't be like, hey, how's it going, right? The conversation ends.
Right.
Like, if I met you the last time and you spoke to me about how you're interviewing Jonty Rhodes, and my first question has to be, how was that?
Yeah.
What did you not know before you interviewed, and what absolutely blew your mind, right? So that's the first one. Like, have deeper conversations with people. Number two is opportunities created, right? Like, you have to create opportunities for people versus just wait for opportunities to happen to you, right? So if I feel like you're someone, and let's just take the women in marketing example. If I feel like you do this and you do this well, I will lean on you to be like, hey, Alina, do you want to come moderate this panel? Because like, this is the cohort and Pritha's coming from Please See, and we feel like this will, it'll be valuable. And I feel like that's where the give and take also happens, right? Like, it's only if you give will you get. So having that patience and having that willingness, which a lot of people don't have because we are all busy with our lives, right? So I think really being open to those opportunities and engaging, right? And I have this little theory. I have a lot of people who I wouldn't really call mentors, or maybe they don't know they are my mentors, but I really look up to them, right? And for me, I feel like I've been able to have that because I've genuinely made the effort to engage with them beyond when I really need something from them, right? And I remember when I was in Zomato, and there was no way I was leaving Zomato, but I think someone who was the chief product officer at Airtel, I think, had reached out to me saying that, there's this opportunity. And till then, I'll also be honest, I was very close to all opportunities and all sort of networking, because when you're building something as a young person, you're giving everything to that one organization, right? Because of course the organization is also giving it to you. But then I was like, yeah, chal, let's leave this. Let me just go. I'm going to be honest with them, obviously, about the fact that I'm not looking. But what's the worst, right? And I remember Quorum had just opened then. And I said, worst case, I'll go see Quorum and come and eat and come, right? So I remember going for that. I think it was a evening conversation. So I walked in, I had a chat. I was very honest with him about the fact that, I love what I do, but I just want to learn more about you, more about, what you do, what you think, how Airtel functions, all of that. And I think we just decided to stay in touch. Right. But then I think the onus then, Alina, was on me to keep him updated on everything that's happening with my life, even if that's a text message in 6 months.
I do the same thing.
Right? Yeah. So people need to understand that. And when I eventually quit Zomato to actually start Leap, I had reached out to him because I was building a product. Right. And he was the chief product officer at Airtel who had built multiple companies, helped me so much, right? Helped me with the dating app idea also back in the day. But we need to understand that all these dots eventually connect. So we've really got to get like our lazy asses out of our homes and understand that nothing is going to happen if you're going to sit at home and like just Netflix.
No, I have to give you my own incident of Leap Club because you don't know. There was this time where a life coach, I think Ashri, she came up to me and she was asking me something about how to do on reach on Instagram. And so I helped her and I said, okay, here's what you should do about your Instagram. Maybe give her some tips and all. And then when I asked her what she does and she told me that she's a life coach, you won't believe how much of her effort I have taken into my work and my business. We never went out with the intention of what is in it for her or for me.
Yeah.
I just helped her out. She helped me out
Without
with,
expecting
with like
anything.
half an
Yeah.
hour of my advice on Instagram. I must have asked her like 200 questions after that. I said, I literally went to her and I asked, okay, but why do I need a life coach? And she drew something on the chart and explained to me, and I realized the value. And now we're in touch. And when John T was coming, I messaged her. I said, listen, I wasn't afraid when he was coming, but now I'm getting nervous.
Yeah.
And she helped me solve that problem. Even for me, in fact, for having Chirag on the shows,
Yeah.
I met him over there and I saw the tricks that he was doing. And I was like, wow, this is so cool. The first thing I said is, I have a lot of questions for somebody that is a mentalist. Will you
Yeah.
please come on my podcast so my audience can also
So
listen to
it's
it?
not just women, it's also men.
It's also some
But
men.
that's the thing,
effort,
right? You
yeah.
put the effort.
Yeah.
You came for that launch event.
And I
You
make
came-
sure I keep in touch with the
Yeah.
people that I have met, because otherwise then what's the point?
So that's the thing, right? Like just deeper engagement.
Yeah.
And a lot of engagement and showing up. So yeah, I feel like that's the only way to make it work for you.
Okay. But talking about audience, is it only for working professionals? Because I did meet somebody who's a housewife and she said I'm a part of it, but it's branded as it's for only professionals.
So we actually also realized that and rebranded it.
Okay.
So now we call it a world only for women.
Okay.
But I think Leap.Club for us is for anyone who identifies as a woman and who's willing to put in that work in their self-development, right? Now, that person could be a freelancer, it could be a founder, it could be someone working at a Nykaa, someone working at a Swiggy, to someone who's, a homemaker, someone who's in between jobs, someone who's on a sabbatical, right? And we need to understand that's how the mission adds up, right? Again, you might feel like, how will that workshop on financial fitness help me? Or how will that one karaoke session help me? Or how will that one reading session help me? But the entire point of a Leap.Club is to create that community for women to just have a support system that they can go to outside of their work. A lot of women who, by the way, come, and Leap.Club, by the way, we do let kids come up to the age of 5. But for some reason, nobody has got that child because everyone's like, I'm
I
leaving
wanna
my
be-
kids and problems at
For a
home.
reason.
Right? Like, this is my safe space. It's my only me time. And we want to protect that. So to answer your question, Leap is for everyone who wants to give it the time and give it the focus that it might need for us to make a change.
Understood. Okay, so for Ragini, for people like us, I think it's easier to network and to speak to people. We've been in this space for long. We have built something to show. But a lot of women, I find, are just very underconfident. They're very shy, very afraid to speak, and that's why also they lose out on a lot of opportunities. We also have a lot of imposter syndrome in like women, like so much, right? That makes us stop. And I have seen a lot of women who say, you're so brave, you're putting yourself out there. I was like, no, but it was scary for me also. In the beginning I had to get over it, and they're like, we just can't put ourselves out there, we can't talk to people, we find it, they're afraid to do that. And I to whatever one-on-one person I will be like, listen, you have to take the shot. It's going to be difficult in the beginning, but then it'll become comfortable over time. How does somebody like that, because I've seen that at Leap Club also, there are lots of women who are like trying, you can see that they're trying, they're in the corner, they're going to talk to somebody, but it's hard for them. So like, why are first of all women so underconfident? I don't understand.
So I don't think women
And,
are
yeah?
underconfident. I don't think so. I feel like women are conditioned to believe.
Yeah, they think they are not.
Yeah,
Obviously they're
yeah,
not.
yeah.
But they are worried about what
I think
gonna
it's a little bit of conditioning, right? Like we are scared to go out there. We're scared to step out of our homes after 7 p.m. Don't wear this. I feel like this is more conditioning than anything else. And for me, confidence, to be honest, Alina, is like a muscle, right? that muscle has to be exercised. So if you don't give women the opportunities, if you don't give them the playground to make those mistakes, to fall, like you said, right? If you remember the women in marketing case study we were doing, there was a girl, she started her conversation with, I'm not good at this.
Yes.
And like, please.
But
And
she was so
fabulous.
good. She was so
She
good.
was so good.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
I'm like, what is she doing here?
Yeah.
She should be on our team.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
Why is she saying that? Why do you say that
Why
to
are you
yourself?
making yourself believe so? Everyone needs to be an Anil Kapoor.
Yeah.
Love yourself. Like literally,
Right. Hmm.
like, and I keep telling this to the team, right? Like I have some insane confidence, first of all, in myself. I'm just like, too good, amazing. I'm looking too good. I'm doing a great job. So
Hmm.
if you don't do that to yourself, the world has enough people telling you can't do it.
Yeah.
Right? So you've got to really exercise that muscle. You
Yeah.
have to exercise that muscle. You have to start believing that, like you said, you will fail the first 2 times. Looking back, I remember my first 2-3 podcasts, I'm just like, what have I said? Have I said this? You know what
Yeah,
I mean?
it's true.
And I'm just like, this has to change. And like, I have done by now, I would like to say 80 podcasts at least.
Okay.
And this morning I was telling Vishwani, who I work with, and I was like, after the club launch, honestly, it's my first podcast because I've been avoiding it till
Yeah.
now. But I'm like, think I'm nervous. She's like, you do this day in, day out.
Exactly.
But we will always have that
that
little
sound.
bit of this thing. But when you put us on the spot, we will do a great job.
Yeah.
So I think it's about that. So I feel like we have to drop this notion that we can't do it. We have to drop this notion that we're not confident enough to, even if we're not at
Yeah.
that point, you're not getting better till you really put yourself out
Exactly.
there, right?
The first few podcasts that I did, I was not as confident as I am right
Yeah.
now, but I knew that it's just going to take some time.
Yeah.
And even if I make the mistakes in the beginning, it's
Yeah.
fine because speaking on a camera is different from having like this whole big
Conversation.
setup.
Yeah.
And you have the second guest I had was Roshan Abbas sir, and
Who's
he's
great.
such a good storyteller,
Yeah.
such a good orator,
Yeah.
and I was like, how am I going to do this? So you get those nerves, but I think the only way is I'm just like, let's just do it. Like it's fine, whatever happens.
And you need to understand,
It's
people
okay.
will be a lot more supportive
They are.
than you feel like
They
they
are.
won't be, right?
They
Like
are.
even when she said what she said,
Yeah.
everybody in the audience clapped.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But if you don't really put yourself out there, you don't even know what your strengths are. You don't even know
Exactly.
what your, blind spots are.
Yeah.
So
he did come and he say, I think all of the guests, they said you have a lot of potential. You have it in you to be able to do this and all. So that gives the confidence, and then you're like, okay, you can do it better.
Yeah.
But I just believe that everybody should know that we all go through that.
Yeah.
Like it's not that only you're going through it or I'm going through it. It's
Yeah.
like it's a normal thing. And when you say that to people, just like they become so comfortable.
Yeah.
Then they start believing in you, and then they believe that okay, if you're also going through the same thing,
It's normal.
Like we never thought you're like afraid of. I'm like, no, I have stage fright.
Yeah.
Like it maybe doesn't look like because I'm trying to just fake it till I make
yeah,
it. You
yeah.
know.
And prep, right? Like even if
Yeah.
it's something that's a blind spot, like really
Yeah.
go after those dry runs with yourself, right? And it's not gonna happen till again.
You just go out.
You
and
just go out and
do
put
it now.
yourself. Yeah.
I have to now talk about your journey with Zomato and talk about like what made you transition from there to here.
So Zomato for me happened pretty early in 2013, and I was a part of the sales team in Hyderabad, which was home for me. And I think in a couple of months, I think 6-7 months, they just told me on a Friday evening. I remember saying, "Will you join the Bangalore office on Monday?" And I'm like, "Yeah." Sure, like nothing to lose. Tomorrow is my parents' anniversary. Sunday I'll bounce. Like it's all good. And so I did. And that was another opportunity I agreed to take on, right? And I think Zomato for me in Bangalore was again a sales team. I was super young. I was one of the, unfortunately or fortunately or whatever, I was one of the very few female ASM/area sales managers. But I think I got a lot of opportunities there, right? Like I got the opportunity to build online ordering there. I got the opportunity to build a team, my first ever mentee, my first ever big team, understanding what is acquisition, what is client success. All of that learning actually happened while my journey at Zomato in Bangalore happened, till a point like everyone in sales feels like they've learnt it all. And I was like, I want to do something else. And then I got moved again to Delhi. And I think in a couple of months, our co-founder, Pankaj, was launching something called Deals, which later was coined as Zomato Gold. and I was the first person on the gold team in India, which was very, very unnerving because the product honestly didn't launch for a couple of months. So it launched eventually, of course, in, I think November 2017, 14th November 2017. But we were working on it technically from almost Feb of 2017. So that is a long period of just waiting it out and telling restaurants that
This is happening.
hoga launch, hoga launch, hoga launch, right? And
Yeah.
you're working with all sorts of brands, right from like the Ruto 4s of the world to the Dailies of the world to all sorts of brands, right? So to be able to manage that, to be able to be resilient through it all, that it will happen. There was a time, honestly, I quit and I was like, I'll go studying my MBA. I don't think this is going anywhere. and then I remember Dipinder, who continues to be, I think, the founder at Zomato. He had told me that no, we're getting a new leader. The product will launch. Just give it like another month, and so on and so forth. Short story, like long story short, I feel like. Anand came in, who's my now co-founder, came in to lead Zomato Gold. We launched the product. It was a big hit. It was, of course, a big hit. We ended up launching multiple countries. By the end of it, Zomato Gold was in 10 countries. It had 2 million paid users. We had like a 30 million ARR. So all of those learnings and all of those launches and all of that, right? I think that just taught me a lot more than I would say even the first 4 years really taught me. So that was the Zomato journey and highlight journey. And you can only imagine, like, if a company gives you that, you feel like you owe it to them to really stay the
Prove.
Yeah. But I remember, I think when we started the thought of Leap.club today, which was then Cornflake, which I'm so glad we didn't call it. It's still our legal entity name. But like it was just a Canva deck. So we just wrote whatever Anand's college project was called. And we started sending it to friendly investors and, people he had raised from in the past and just our friends who are founders and everyone, Alina, was like, this is great, but like, what's the TG? Who are you building for? Because then it was just a professional network, nothing else. And there was a concierge service and like it was a completely different model, but it was a professional network because we realized like LinkedIn and etc. like not adding any value to people, and people now want something beyond, even if it's paid. And I think when we really locked in who we're building for, which is the top 1% women, I think that's when it really hit me that this is something that I want to give my all to. And I remember telling my co-founder, I am coming back in 1 year because I don't know if this is going to work or no. And I think he was kind enough to say the doors will be open, right? But this is something that I feel like you really want to do. So you should go ahead and do it.
Nice.
And I'm glad till now I haven't gone back. but that's how my leap of faith honestly happened, which was I finished 6 years. All of December 2019, I wrote to a bunch of founders like Ankur and Suchita, Roshan Abbas, everyone. And I was just like, this is who I am. This is what we're building. Some replied, some didn't. Some are very kind to give their time, in fact, to us.
You actually have some very interesting investors on board. Tell us how
that happened. We do.
Tell us how that happened.
So a part of that, right? So I think when we were reaching out to people, some were, of course, just for gyan, for the lack of a better word, because you build food tech. So what do you know about this anyway? And some of it was also for money and like just like a sizable check, so to speak. And I think back then we still believed that VC is the way to go and like we will build a VC fundable business. We didn't even think about things like TAM and what is the market size and like what will valuation look like, what are we even showing. But we knew that there was a waitlist, there were people keen, and we started doing a lot of cold reach outs. In fact, I am a mini Ankur Warikoo when it comes to really the power of cold reach outs. For me, everything is that. I think how this podcast is happening is also a cold reach out, right? So I feel like really shoot your shots. And I feel like everyone almost, I would say 90% of ours were just cold reach outs. We very consciously actually went after certain investors who had built businesses. We didn't want to go after just people who were rolling out checks or typically your larger VC firms. We wanted to go after people who we could genuinely learn from, who will genuinely have something concrete To add, we wanted to ensure there are enough women on the cap table. You cannot build a business like ours with like an all manual cap table, which was tough, which was very, very tough because I think like out of every 100 investors, there's one female investor.
That's
right?
just across the board,
That's
right?
just, which is terrible, right?
Yeah.
So really handpicking, finding. In fact, we had a community round where a lot of members participated.
Yes.
As well, right? And I feel like that is the responsibility that we shoulder and we carry. And like even on days we're like, shut this nonsense, we don't want to do this, but just like, that belief, I think that is what really keeps us going.
Yeah, I heard that there are members who are investors also.
Yeah.
That must feel like, okay, you're on the right
That
path.
is validation for us.
Yeah. But what is the hardest part about building Leap Club?
The hardest part about building Leap.club is that it is a very, very big problem to solve. It's a problem that where you will not see success overnight. We know this is a slightly more long-term game. And every founder likes validation. Every founder wants to see, I think some win, some success. So we see it a lot. I just feel like down the road, you start taking some things for granted. Like you start these little success stories for granted and you see, oh, this person's, has 100 people team and they have this thing doing that. I'm sitting and taking out hair from sofas. I've spoken about it twice, so it really bothers me. But I feel like that, right? Like success for us is not overnight, which is heartbreaking. But that's also why it's important to stay the course and I think be resilient through it all. And the fact that we need many more Leap.clubs in the world. Yeah.
And across cities?
Across cities,
Yeah.
Like even the clubs. I think for us, we're looking at Bangalore and Delhi next.
Okay.
We moved to Bombay because we believe Bombay is the heart
It
of
is the place to be.
It is the place to be. I mean, the roads are questionable.
Traffic
is, the houses are. But I think my Bombay questions apart, I also feel like when we took this decision to literally move base, because that also costed personal money.
Yeah, of
right?
course.
More than anything else, and really shaking. Like my dog drove down from Delhi to Bombay. But I think that was also because when you say what is the heart of Leap.club, it's a certain feeling which is not really describable in words. And I think Bombay members for us give that feeling, show that feeling, and really exude that feeling. It's homogeneous. It's very, very nice.
Yeah,
It's
very
very
open,
kind.
very
It's very
welcoming.
open. It's very welcoming, and it cuts across everything, right? And for us, we were like, this is going to define how the next few clubs are going to be built. So even the feeling when you enter a club, right? Like even the feeling, like even the smell, even the art that's there, even the rugs that are there, like everything in the club is female owned or female run, right? And I feel like those little things now need to be recreated, which I don't think we would have gotten had we not closed this space.
Right.
So yeah.
So next is Bangalore and Delhi.
Next is kill me. Next is Bangalore, and
Okay.
hopefully after is
Okay.
Delhi or Gurgaon. Yeah.
Right.
But this time we're learning to be patient. We want to see.
It does take time,
Yeah.
and I think building anything solid takes a lot of years. And even though social media can tell you otherwise, because you're looking at other people building faster.
Yeah.
I had that initially. I was like, but this agency and this media house is just doing so many numbers. They have so many employees,
So
But
many
then-
followers.
so many followers.
God.
But now I've come to realize that I am here in the long run, and I'm here for the long run, and it's going to take time to build what I have to. But if I stay patient, is when it's going to last. Because I've also seen a lot of people come and go. There are lots of influencers, lots of companies that then haven't sustained because they're trying to do it so fast and get the results so quickly, and that doesn't happen.
And the crash and burn is real, right?
It's
like,
real. I've seen.
Like you can Google a company's name that's shut down, and then there will be another Your Story article about their funding, and then another
Yeah.
PR article, and it's scary.
It
right?
is,
Like
it
it's
is.
super scary. But I think that's the thing about resilience. You really have to
you have to stay. You have to stay, and it takes time. And I think you have to just stay. Like, my funda is just to be in my own lane and my own race. I'm and not competing with anybody anymore. Like, it's fine. But so much interesting conversation. But I do have one thing that I picked out on over these years is that you don't like the term female entrepreneur.
I don't.
Why? I want to ask.
Because I think labels matter.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll tell you my thought process. Not to
Yes.
say that there is, like, not to say I'm against it.
For example,
Yeah.
for me,
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, it's okay. Call me whatever.
Yeah,
Okay.
but I'm not
Yes.
that.
Yeah.
Because I feel like
That's
there have
vast.
been times, and I remember, I think Suchita and I have had this conversation as well, because she's also with you. She's just like,
I'm like, it's
doesn't
okay.
matter.
Yeah.
Okay, let me give you an example. Let's assume there's an ET Entrepreneur of the Year, right? And I've got this award, and I'm excited. And then I get another award, which is Female Entrepreneur of the Year. I'm kind of really limiting my success and my win to the potentially challenges of being a female founder. Like, for me, it becomes about, oh, as a female founder, she has done it, versus I've done a great job and this is how I did it. And like, that's why I'm the entrepreneur of the year. So for me, I think it stems from you're kind of making it about the gender versus making it about what the person has done. Like, this is a male doctor. No one says that, right? It's a female doctor or it's a female constable. Why can't it be a constable? Why can't it be a chairperson? Why can't it be those things, right? So again, not to say there's a right or wrong. Personally, I don't want to be typecasted as, in female founders, she has done a good job, right? Because then you're telling me just because I'm a female founder and the pool is
No,
so
that-
tiny,
yeah.
then that's why I've got this.
No.
But no, I am the founder and that's why I've got it.
Right. I just look at it as they're making me stand out by saying that there is not a lot of females who are in this
Which is
category.
true, and,
And
yeah.
I look at it that way. I'm like, yes, I'm proud of it. I'm
Not
like,
to take
okay.
away from the societal problem at hand.
Yeah.
But for me, I think it's just the labeling. I do feel like people start viewing the award, for the lack of a better example, very differently the minute you say it's a
It's for women.
female.
Yeah, for awards,
yeah.
I agree. though.
Yeah.
There's one last question. It could be personal also, but basically, I've seen in the professional women space is that when a lot of women so in the beginning of their careers, it's easier because the responsibilities are lesser. The minute that you're getting married, for example, even around my circle, somebody who's been educated so much, somebody who's going out so much, but suddenly because of just having more responsibilities, whether it's your home, whether it's your children, women leave the workspaces and leave networking and leave connecting with, because there is so much going on. So you have to understand that. But I think it's very detrimental to the growth of a woman if she stops doing all of these things. And it's so evident, at least around me, that the changes so much that I'm not able to cope up. What do you think? How can women balance this thing? Because that's the question that I get all the time.
Yeah. So yeah, honestly, I don't speak about this a lot also because I'm not married, right? So it's tough to say, oh, do this, do that. Like, you don't want to dole out gyan that you don't really apply to yourself. But I think what I've learned from a lot of women I look up to, a lot of friends who are married, a lot of leaders, I think, who are also married, men and women, right? Is a bunch of things, right? Number one, I think you have to set boundaries, right? Like, when you are at work, you need to 100% be at work. And when you're at home, you need to 100% be at home, right? But in the same vein, I'll also say, Alina, there is no work-life balance. There will be days your work will supersede your personal life, and there should be days your personal life supersedes your work. And the day you start really, really berating yourself about this, oh, I have to do this also, I have to do this also, I have to do this also, that's when you really win. Like, just stop trying to do everything. I feel like a lot of, and we'll talk about having open conversations, but I feel like a lot of people feel like their day is divided into two parts. One is work, one is personal. Where is your time for yourself, right? And I think Saloni Suri, who I used to go to, I think, for coaching a couple of years ago, and she had told me this, that 8 hours Ragini sleep, right? Because founders don't sleep, right? But 8 hours sleep, 8 hours is work, and it's hardcore work, and it's nothing else, right? Because we're all ambitious women. Now the other 8 hours have to be divided. They have to be divided into time with partners, with kids, with parents, whatever your personal
Yeah.
life and equation at home may look like.
Yeah.
Dogs in
Yeah.
my case, right? And most importantly, I think leave those 2 hours in a day for yourself,
Right. Which we don't do.
which we don't do, and that is the problem. Because we just go from calendar to calendar, responsibility to responsibility, whether that's a dinner, whether that's a, just hanging at home with your husband or with your parent or whatever it is. Where is your time for yourself in your entire 24 hours? And I feel like that's when these things catch up. Because if you can take out those 2 hours for yourself, you can also take out those 2 hours, whether that's for a networking mixer, whether that is to talk to someone who can genuinely help you, whether that's to read, whether that's to attend an online session. It could be anything. But what are your 2 hours of self growth and self love, for the lack of a better word? It could just be painting.
Yeah, it
It
could be
could be
whatever you
karaoke.
enjoy
It
doing.
could be anything, right? But you have to take out that. And I think for a lot of people, especially I think the kind of women you're talking about, they are the exact ones who need to stop falling off the workforce.
Yeah,
right? They cannot,
exactly.
because if you're saying someone is educated, done good things,
And
I
have
think
so much potential.
have so much
But they just like,
potential.
it's just harder for women to be able to
open
do it.
conversations, right? Like I feel like what you're also seeing, then they're coming from the privilege of having some help, whether that's a partner, whether that's help at home, whether that's parents. It could be anything. Like if you can afford it, and I'm saying afford it because I understand everyone can't, that's hiring a nanny, right? But really get help and have an open conversation, because a child is going to see what their mother is doing growing up, right? My mother did the Chennai IPL the first time ever, and I grew up watching that, and I don't think I would have that drive. She was, when she had me, when she was pregnant, she was working, right? So I feel like people really grow up to be what they see their parents be, and I feel like it's an absolute disservice if we're not using the privilege you have, right? So we see so many people, and not to say that like just because you're not working, like it's all gone, right? Like if you feel like
Take
these are
a
the
break.
years I want to give, I think to my kids, also fine. And
Yeah.
Janui did that, and look at
Yeah,
where she is,
yeah.
right? But when you're back, also understand what you need to do to make up for those years. Give it your all. Do what it takes to really go back and get back out there. And if there are years that are there to just, like I've done it all, and now these are 3 years of my sabbatical, also okay.
Yeah.
Let's not judge them, right? Maybe we will need it, right? But at the same time, it's really about showing up there as well, right? Like having open conversations, setting those boundaries for yourself, and not letting yourself drop, because we're doing the biggest disservice to
Our potential.
other potential upcoming women who are much stronger,
Exactly.
much brighter, so much more ambitious than all generations honestly put together. So yeah.
Right. Ragini, from your journey, what has been like your highlight moments or
In life,
Leap Club?
Leap Club. Indra Nooyi,
Yes.
our first ever big, I would say, offline Leap affair, which had like 1,000 women. We've also done a 2,000 plus women one, but I think that 1,000 one was special because I think the entire team cried.
Yeah.
And they were like, we can't believe we did it. We used to do 50 people events. You know what I mean? But I think, and we've done stuff with Zinat Aman, we've done stuff with Faye D'Souza, but I feel like there's a reason Indra Nooyi masterclass, we did a 60-minute online session with her mid, I think, one of the many waves that there were. But I do feel like that changed the way people looked at Leap.Club. When she spoke about the caliber of the business, of the community, of the kind of women who were there. And for me, I think one was, of course, the great impact it had on our traffic, on our socials, and what she said. And just I think validation, for the lack of a better word. But I think one thing I will always take to my grave is how she treated the team.
Yeah.
How she treated the team, right? And and we've had lots of speakers. We've done so many online masterclasses. We continue to do them, and right from I think our first ever one with I think Sakshi and Mohit from Sequoia, Ankur Variku, Abanti from Diageo, all of these people. And then one day we were just like, what's that one moonshot? What is gonna just blow everyone's mind? And I think one common name was Indra Nooyi.
Yeah.
Even on our app, there is a section called My Hero. 30% women, fortunately or unfortunately, because that means not enough role models, but they say Indra Nooyi. So we were like, yeah, how do we get her?
Yeah.
Right.
And how did you get her?
I will tell you that maybe, but we actually went via the publisher.
Okay.
I haven't said this out loud, but a member continues to in fact work with Hachette Medha, and she had also said, yeah, Indra's on a hiatus. I don't know if this is happening. We were like, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
Right. And I remember we bought 1,000 books to get those 60 minutes. We donated them to an NGO for little girls in Dehradun. But we waited almost 5-6 months because we got a date much later, which was post the hiatus. But I think those 60-90 minutes, I think just blew our mind. She joined 15 minutes before even joining time.
Yeah.
And we've had people join right on time. A lot of male founders, podcasters. One person has not showed up only.
Okay.
That was the only time, and I have a lot to say about that. But I think just this fact that she showed up 15 minutes before, she asked everyone on the team their name, what they do, where they were. And one girl also said that my mom is joining. She asked her mother's name.
Okay.
The minute everyone entered from the waiting room, she called out to the mother.
Okay.
And she said, I'm so glad to see you. And you don't realize, but people will remember this forever.
Yeah, of course.
Right? And it's not just she and me and her mom who will. Every there were 1,000 women. So every single one person remembered that moment, right? And yeah, I think for us that just changed our excitement to do and think bigger, because we were not expecting 1,000 people to show up, and that really made us be like, if this is possible online, let's try to do this offline. So I feel like for me that will continue to be my favorite moment ever. Yeah.
Interesting. I love it. I was part of that session also. She was really good. And I think that's the thing about great people, is they make everybody feel important. Yeah. I've seen that in like people always. But now I have to end this with asking you, what do you see as the future of Leap Club, and also what do you see as the future of female networking and safe spaces?
So I think future of Leap Club, we have a long way to go. I think
I'm sure.
A long way to go. I think as a company, we want to focus on growth. We want to focus on really staying the long game. And I think from a very engagement and online perspective, of course, that has to continue. It has to grow. It has to get better. Where, like you said, there's too much happening. How do we reduce it to exactly what is working? And how do you then compound that engagement, take it to hopefully many more cities?
And hopefully outside of India also.
And hopefully outside of India. We do have members in Singapore, Dubai, London, but it's all organic, right?
Yeah.
But we do hope for Leap.club to really cut across borders, because we know the world needs many more communities. It needs many more such safe spaces that just don't exist across the globe. And really build a solid team. So we are hiring, and while we are 13-14 people team, we want to continue to stay lean, but we want to build a very solid group of people who act like founders, think like founders. So many of our past team members have gone on to start building their own companies, and we want to really push that. I think Zomato did that for both me and my co-founder, and we want to really do the same and build it that way. But yeah, here's hoping our mission really stays the long haul and cuts across the many speed breakers that come in between, because God knows they do. But yeah, that's the plan.
interesting. I'm looking forward to everything that Leap is building, personally also and professionally also. I keep track of what is happening. I personally have to say this to our audiences, that I love meeting women, and especially women that kind of are looking to get ahead in their careers and in their lives. So that space is interesting for me. The other fact that you can go and just be yourself and nobody's judging is another great factor about Leap. And it's not just it's one member, two member. I think it's just the whole vibe of the community is that finally this is a space where we're not judging each other. That's what it is for me, and for any way that I can ever help anybody at Leap Club, I find that very fulfilling.
Yeah.
Because I've also have this mission of like helping. I go out and help every woman that I can into starting, whether it's starting something of their own or moving out or whatever it is, because I feel like that isn't there as much.
Yeah.
And so I love your mission, which is why I really love Leap Club, and I'm always going to be a member. No
And a
matter where you go.
cheerleader.
And a cheerleader, always.
Yeah, and that's the thing, right? I feel like we paid back to one, and that person's going to do it to two more. And I feel like that's the only way this entire big problem that we're really working on will solve.
It does tie on. It does tie on.
Yeah.
Because I feel like, okay, now it's my responsibility. There's so many women over here. What can I also do for them?
What can I offer?
You're passing on the baton to like
Yeah.
everybody else.
Yeah.
I hope you continue to do it. And I hope that Leap grows into, like, I would like for it to be all over the world. Like you
Leaps
have
and
your,
bounds.
yeah, like you
Yeah.
have your Sohos and you have like
Yeah.
all of those. I think there is a need. So I hope that. And I'm so glad you could do this and share your insights. I'm sure it's going to be a great value-packed information episode, because did I mention to you, a lot of people asked for you to come on the podcast.
Really? I didn't know
They
that,
said
yeah.
you have to get Ragini on the podcast.
Yeah,
I
and
said,
I'm
okay,
glad this happened. And,
yeah,
and
I had a
yeah.
great conversation.
And likewise. Thank
Thank
you for
you
having
so
me.
much for being here. Thank you so much, guys, for watching another episode. If you liked it, please subscribe. And if you have any thoughts, please leave them in the comments. I'll see you next time.